Welcome, everyone. My name is Laurie Scott, co-founder and director of Nuco and Nuco's Global Executive Search. Thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is a Jazora webinar in association with the Connectivity Business News. I'd like to thank the sponsors for today's webinar, who are the creators of the new online training material for those in the space and satellite industry, Space Business Qualified. These courses are a great way to onboard new staff, broaden the knowledge of existing staff, and prepare staff for increased responsibilities. You can find more additional information on their website at spacebq.org. So today's webinar is going to focus on strategies to attract new talent into the satellite and space industry. We'll address compensation, challenges, training initiatives, diversity and inclusion, as well as remote working hurdles. A significant challenge faced by the space industry globally is the presence of skill gaps in the job applicants. In the UK, approximately 61% of the organisations reported skill gaps, with the issue being particularly acute for large organisations, where up to 84% face challenges in finding applicants with the required skills and experience. Despite these challenges, the global space industry is thriving through substantial investment. The industry is on track to reach $1 trillion valuation, offering substantial growth and investment prospects. The aerospace and satellite companies play a vital role in our nation's economy, serving as the industry backbone. Now, I'm delighted to introduce you to today's panelists. We have Sarah Bell, Manager of Global Service Technical Training at SES. We have Jon Christensen, Global Head of People Development at Spire Global. Kiran Sharma, Senior Recruitment Coordinator at Intelsat. And Kate Gittens, VP and Director of HR at Astroscale. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you join us today. My first question is, what strategies can be adopted to attract and retain top talent in a highly competitive satellite and space technology field?
So we've enjoyed a really rapid growth at Astroscale in the last 18 months. We're a startup that's kind of evolved into a scale-up. So not coming from the space industry before that myself, I've been in space for 18 months now. Yeah. And I think that there are quite a few key takeaways in terms of learning from our journey. We've hired about 100 people in the last 12 months, which has been a phenomenal journey, but a difficult one at the same time.
Sure.
So it's important. I think you've referenced the skills survey and everything that's come out of that as an industry, and the challenges that we do face. And I think one key, aspect of that for us was evolving a little bit the mindset that not everybody needs to come from space in terms of experience, and really being open-minded. I think, we've hired people from lots of different industries, space included for sure. We need space experience. Sure. But we've hired people from automotive, from banking, from publishing, from other areas of engineering, robotics, oil and gas. So it goes to show that, transferable skills are so key in terms of being able to bring, diversity to the industry and new ways of thinking, but also, filling the gaps where it's quite tricky to do that with just the skills that we have in the space industry in the UK. As well, some other space, we've hired a lot from abroad, which we've been really fortunate to be able to do. And I think balancing bringing skills into the UK is a really important topic. It's becoming increasingly harder for employers to do that. The government has just increased the costs again for visas. So that is a challenge. But again, there's a lot of talent from abroad that we've been really fortunate to bring into the company, where they just don't have the space ecosystem or the advanced industry in their countries. Yeah. And there's a lot of skills elsewhere. So I think that's an important point, trying to balance this experience from different industries, but also from space, but not necessarily from the UK. Also encouraging applications from unlikely sources, and what headhunting activities we're doing to encourage, especially women who are not as likely to apply for jobs if they're not meeting 100% of the criteria. Yeah. What are we doing to convince people that actually space is accessible, and that they've got a way into that in terms of having transferable skills. I found it extremely inspirational attending the Rise Together event in the last couple of weeks that was hosted by ESA with the Harwell campus. And there were some female astronauts there that were explaining actually they didn't have a traditional path into space, but they just said, you know what, I'm going to apply because, you know, why not?
Yeah.
And I think if we can support this mindset as well going into schools, you know, having role models across our company to show others that it is possible to join the space industry. As well, I think just finally on a couple of points, I think as well, balancing the experience in the company is really important, and that's something we've seen that's not been easy because it's difficult to hire people with more senior skill sets, especially in engineering. You know, we're lacking that in the UK. But actually balancing that with, you know, a graduate program we've just launched in the last few weeks has been phenomenal, because you've got a really mix of people from different backgrounds, different ways of thinking and ideas, which has been truly invaluable to also fill some of our gaps. So I don't think there's one way to address this. I think it's a number of different initiatives. Maybe I can come on to culture later. I'll give someone else a chance to talk. But we should. That's been a really key learning for Astroscale as well. Never compromising on culture, and what we've built here, we're really proud, is really special. You know, people are so passionate about space. There's such supportive, friendly environment that we have. And that's been a little bit deliberate in terms of how we've gone about that. So I'm happy to come back to that after, but I'll leave the floor to Kieran if she's got any comments.
Thanks, Kate. Really encouraging. Thanks, Kieran.
Yeah, thanks so much. Really, you know, the question is, how do people know that Intelsat is a great place to work? You know, when we host our events, we're putting it out there in the world. We are thrilled to share it. It is on all of our platforms, our social media platforms, from LinkedIn to Glassdoor. And it's really showcasing the benefit of employee-led programs. And, you know, they're not only proud to share it, you know, they're taking selfies. You know, we had a Wear Pink Day for breast cancer awareness, and we have everyone from all of our different offices posting photos, sharing it, and, you know, they're part of it. And that's important. It's important for us to be able to highlight that, and also show that employees are not just showing up from work, you know, they're showing up outside of work as well. You know, our commitment to DEI, it's not a secret. You know, we are promoting it, and it is out there. And it's really important that people know that even before they come to a career fair or apply for a role with Intelsat, that they know that we are a safe place to work. When they work for Intelsat, you know, they know that they're going to be doing meaningful work. And in the digital age, you know, it's on us before they talk to us, that they know how their experience is going to be. There's no guessing. And, you know, when they connect with us and they follow us on LinkedIn, they're seeing everything out there. They're seeing all the different events that we're participating from commercial side to D&I. And really, you know, it's a way for them to have that impact and be there. It's important for us to share that we want them to feel true and be able to be their authentic self. And, you know, they're going to see that on social media before they apply. You know, people choose places to work based on, you know, if they can be themselves and how they can show up every day. So it's really important for us to highlight that and promote that.
That's fantastic. Really encouraging to hear. Appreciate both your answers. I'm actually going to ask you both another question, if you don't mind, and then I'll move on to the rest of the panel. So this is going to be around compensation challenges and sort of the flexible working benefits, and I'm sure there's loads to add. But how can an organisation balance the diverse levels of experience and expectations amongst employees? Kate, do you want to go with this one?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. It's a challenging one. You know, the market has evolved significantly in the last 18 months. And, you know, it's keeping up with that, really. But there's a couple of kind of key aspects from Astroscale's perspective that that are important in terms of our offering. And I think the first is about transparency. So we're quite upfront, with our candidates about what is the salary range, and making sure we have that discussion, from the offset. And we're actually working towards publishing our pay grades, which is a big step, but that's something we feel is important, because it also removes the bias and the potential discrimination. So I think transparency and fairness is absolutely something, and we've done a lot of work to make sure we harmonise pay grades across the company. But more importantly, it's the total offering. What are you joining Astroscale for? What is the culture? But also, what else are we offering you in terms of total compensation, and also the flexible working environment? And actually, we've seen from the hundreds, if not into the thousands now of interviews we've done in the last 18 months, the key things that keep coming back are, can I still work from home? What flexibility are you offering? And on this point, we've had a hard look at ourselves in the last year, and as a leadership team agreed, we're gonna offer something that may not be obvious, because we're ramping up a lot. We've been quite resource constrained, but we've been successful in that, to moving towards something that's more flexible. So we've implemented a 9-day fortnight as a company, which actually we trialed to begin with to check it would work. Obviously, we've seen a lot in the media about going towards a 4-day working week. I think as a society we're not there yet, but the advantage of that in the UK has been it's phenomenal what's come out of that in terms of productivity and engagement. So we gave it a go for 13 weeks, so not a 4-day week, but a 9-day fortnight. And actually, it's something people value so much in terms of getting some time back, but also having a proper disconnect for 3 days a week. And so what I would encourage to anyone out there who thinks that might be a real challenge, we adopted that in a difficult time, an exciting time, and we have been successful in recruitment, but nevertheless still a time where we're evolving a lot and we're scaling. But you need to think as an employer, what are these unique ways you can attract talent, value talent, also appreciate that it's about integrating work into life rather than work-life balance. And people are, human beings, and how can we help them, perform and be brilliant at work and juggle everything they have in their lives. So that's something as well that that we only implemented that around 6 months ago, maybe just over that, and phenomenal kind of feedback and results, and something that people absolutely don't want us to take away. So that's something I think that's here to stay. Obviously there's some adaptation around that, linked to business challenges sometimes when we can't always enforce it, but it's paid dividends in terms of flexibility. The final point from me on this is about supportive policies and practices, and supporting employees throughout all stages of their life. Things like having a fertility policy, having compassionate leave for miscarriage, all these things, having some support around menopause, all these things that we're working towards, and some of the things we've already launched are key as well for employees to really feel valued, and they're joining a company where, as Kieran said, they can be themselves. I think my picture's gone a bit weird because I look like I've got bright teeth. That's great. Maybe I'll need to reinstall my background.
That's great. I mean, it's really encouraging to hear, especially the doing the 9. I'd love to pick your brains on that maybe offline, but really encouraging. Kieran, anything to add?
Yeah, thanks so much. From a talent acquisition perspective, when we engage with our candidates, whether they're experienced or early talent, we tailor our conversations with a very personalized approach. Part of our strategy is promoting our flexibility, flexible work programs as part of our value proposition. We emphasize this and highlight this on our career site, in our job postings, during interviews. We are selling it. And flexibility, it's a central element to this pitch, as it underlines our dedication to a work-life balance. And, in this journey to attract and retain the best talent, we also face compensation challenges. Given, as Kate mentioned, the unique nature of satellite industry, we have to contend with specific skill requirements, hello, RF engineers, and competitive job market. And so to address this, we work closely with our compensation team to ensure that our offers remain competitive and are in line with market trends. And then when it comes to early talent recruiting, our goal is to get them in as early as possible, whether it's in high school working with our Genesis Works partner or our intern and rotational associate program. We want them to know and understand Intelsat's mission of ubiquitous connectivity around the world and to really connect the unconnected. And this resonates with Gen Z's desire to understand, their meaning and impact, that they're going to have beyond their work. And so when I talk to students and people at career fairs, I'm telling them I'm all about our benefits and the exciting aspects of our mission, as well as the meaning and the value of our work. I want them to get really excited. I want them to get fired up. We want them to understand that when they walk in the door, the first day as an intern, they get to contribute to that mission from day one. And that that contribution has lasting value.
Fantastic. Really encouraging to hear. And thank you both for your input. Really good to hear. Okay. Quick reminder for the audience. If you'd like to post any questions to our panel, you can do this via the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and then we can discuss it after our initial questions. So now I'm going to now move on to Jon and Sarah for these next two questions, if that's okay, which is around learning and development. So Jon, what sort of innovative strategies are companies, Inspire employing for learning and development to foster continued skill growth?
Yeah, actually, I think first it's really important just for everybody that's listening in. If you guys don't have an L&D department or some function in the learning area, make sure you get something up and running. Mm-hmm. There's a Gartner thing. I had been doing some research, and 3 out of 4 people think that the company that they're in isn't doing enough to help them grow in their career. That's one of the things. There's a lot of people who think it's the green grass is greener on the other side, right? That's the kind of the thing that goes with that. But the fact is, people are thinking that. And so companies that do have those strong learning cultures, they're going to have their retention rates are 30 to 50% higher than those that don't. So I just really want to emphasize that the importance of, if you don't have an L&D program, do what you can to have the company invest in it and really drive that, because it helps. I mean, for us, so we've only had one now for about a year and a half, a little less than that. But we've seen our attrition rate drop by 40%. We were around 33 or something like that by the end of last year. We're down around 20. So, and a lot of it is due to this. We put something in place where people have this opportunity to grow. In fact, one of the main reasons people were leaving before, one of the top 3 was around career growth and learning. And now that one doesn't even show up on our top 3 of why people are leaving. So it does have an impact. Now, I'm not going to say L&D is the sole solution to attrition, but it definitely has an impact on that. I think one of the strategies when I started building out the function a year ago really was to find an LMS, or a learning management system, that was really more advanced than something like a Cornerstone or some of the other really large ones that I found, in my opinion, were super clunky. But for example, with what we have, it allows the business owners and people in the business can actually create their own trainings really easily. And so we've been pushing out that the businesses can create the trainings because they will figure out what are the skills that they need. They're closer to it. So they create the skills, they create the training for the skills that they need to develop. And what we're seeing is some of these that are being developed, they're now using it as part of the onboarding program for when people in that organization start. And then it's also been a way for people in other organizations to learn more about that business that they wouldn't otherwise, just because they're so busy in the things that they're doing. It allows people in the company to recommend things that they would like to learn that aren't really available through the different third-party applications or content that we have. And so we've ended up creating content that we would have never thought of, but it's because those suggestions come in. And so now we're able to create that. And the other thing we're just really looking into and haven't done anything with yet is really how do we leverage AI in developing content. One of the things that I've seen this on LinkedIn Learning, it's one of the third parties that we use, but is how do we use the AI to recommend what are the trainings people need to develop to, so if they set a goal, they want to be a program manager and they're not that, AI can help them recommend what are the things they need to learn in order to get there. What are the skill gaps that they have? And so it's really trying to leverage some of these technologies out there that really, one is going to help them learning on their own. But that's probably, for me, those are the biggest things, is putting stuff in place that makes it easy, but making sure we've invested in good quality tools to help us do that.
Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, those stats don't lie. If you've got the L&D, then obviously it's going to really help keep the staff. Okay, thank you, Jon. Sarah, anything to add?
One strategy that I think is really important, especially in this industry, is to understand and embrace who our learners are. SES, as you know, several of these other companies here are global companies. The personnel and our employees are global. They come from different backgrounds, different cultures. They have different roles. So truly understanding who our modern learners are, and building learning in this modern workplace sense. So moving away from this traditionalist approach of 5-day courses and expanding our course catalogs to offer content that is accessible to individuals really whenever and wherever they are. So whether that is the 5-day course, or it's an e-learning, or it's a micro learning, I think those strategies are really important in what we do and deliver in terms of learning.
Fantastic, really helpful. Actually, if you don't mind, we've got a question that's came in that's very relevant for this, and I'm going to put you both on the spot and just see if I can get some answers from you guys. So we've got it from it looks like Ralph Brooker, and he's sent out the question saying, how important are training and certificates when you're making hiring decisions and for then onboarding? What areas of training are most needed?
Well, I'll speak for with Spire. To be fair, we don't really necessarily look at those certificates. We're more interested in, can the person do what we need to do? And we're not necessarily focused on people that have space skills. I think that Kate was pretty clear that you've got to look all over the place, right? There's a lot of transferable skills. And so we're more interested in, we've hired people out of the automotive industry, oil and gas, all these places where there's very similar type challenges with maybe really hard environments to work in, very strict regulations, understanding how hardware and systems work together. Can they do that? That is the important thing. And so we'll focus more on what can they do, because through the interview process for us, we're really going to be looking at, can this person learn? We all know the space skills are super, there's not a whole lot of them out there, and we need a lot more people than there are available. And so can this person learn? And a lot of them can. I mean, the people we look at can learn. Do they want to? And there's where that desire, do they want to learn and have new skills?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, most of the people that we've got in our engineering groups, and I'll say even in the business groups, they don't come out of the space industry. They may come out of some of the domains we work in, but they're people that are excited about space and they want to do this. And so that's what we find, that that desire, that will to go make that happen is a lot stronger and a lot more good predictor of that performance than having a certificate or having some sort of kind of badge or something that says you've done this training. Not that those are bad. I'm not suggesting that. But for us in the decision making, that's not a huge factor at all.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jon, for answering that. It's really helpful. Okay, so maybe we'll put this one for you first, Sarah, and then we'll get you on to answer afterwards, because it's around the sort of managing the development training programs. So what do you see are the key challenges that face in managing development training programs, and how are they being overcome?
So one of the key challenges, I would say, in terms of managing this, is certainly career progression and supporting our learners through that. and having clear visuals of what skills are required for each of our roles and how does somebody fulfill those gaps.
Yeah.
One thing that we have implemented at SES is a digital badging program. I think digital badging is absolutely like the bee's knees. I think it's the coolest thing to come forth today. If you're not familiar with digital badging, real quick, digital badging is this visual graphic that contains this metadata around the rigor of a learning event, experience. We see them often being shared on LinkedIn. We see Microsoft certifications being shared through these digital badges, Cisco. And I'm happy to say that SES, we've now embraced this digital badging. Not only does it speak to our learners and help support that visual in terms of what's needed to progress to the next career level, but it also speaks to so many other aspects within the organization. We're talking talent acquisition, building these repositories of possibilities of employees, possibilities of customers, partners, but we're also talking about marketing and sales engagements as well when we speak to digital badging. So this is certainly a strategy that we're embracing and would be absolutely wonderful for the rest of the industry to start looking at and embracing. And it's a great way to also compare skills that are transferable from one industry to the other. Yes.
Fantastic. Brilliant. And then Jan, if you don't mind, could you sort of follow up on that?
Yeah, I a lot of what Sarah started with is things I was actually I was thinking about when you asked the question. We're right now in the process of really trying to have some well-defined career growth, career paths that we will, so you know how to go from one job to the next, from one level to the next. But I think that the challenge of managing is, one, as I'm a team of one, so it's just me. There's bandwidth issues with that. But for me, a lot of it is this: what's that right mix of skill development type content, career growth content, and then the other part of that is our managers, right? How much time and money do we invest on the manager side in developing our leaders? Kind of come back to some of the research I was doing. 31% of people leave their companies because of their manager.
Wow.
And so that's a lot, right? But of course, I think we all would agree with this, at least. Managing people is very different than being good at what you do. Most companies, especially us, and even my previous company, is always like this. You were moved into management because you were good at what you were doing. Not because you were good at managing, but because you were good at what you're doing. And so these are very different skills. And so we've actually, this time around, have doubled down on manager development. And so we have about 100-ish total people that have at least one person reporting to them. And we're putting every single one of them through at least some sort of basic manager training development. And it's been a huge investment for us, but now we're seeing a big increase in, when I went back to our attrition things, at some of the top three, one of the other ones was quality of their manager. And that one is now off the table as well. We don't see that in our top three. And so this is something now, it's about, okay, it's been worth investing that money and we're going to continue doing it, but not at the level we were, just because that was a big push. But I think the bigger challenge is how do we balance all the different things we want to do? Because we have a limited amount to invest in. So it's figuring that out.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm really like, especially going into, it's budgeting now, going into next year, is how do we track the effectiveness on a regular basis? And I've talked about a couple of metrics. I tell you what, manager effectiveness and attrition, they're not solely because of L&D. I know it impacted, or that function impacts it. But what can we, and I don't have the answer to this one. This is something I'm really kind of struggling with, is what do we do to track that this has been effective for the company? And there's different things to look at. But, and then the other balance I'm trying to figure out is, and I'm working on, is how much of the content should be e-learning that people can do, whenever it fits their schedules, and how much still should be done where you have instructor-led training, where you have it actually, whether it's virtual or in person, but you have an instructor leading a course. Because there is some benefit to where you can ask questions just one-on-one in the moment versus do your e-learning, and hopefully you're not doing that as well as trying to do something else at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's trying to figure that those are the challenges that I look at, and how do I make sure this is effective for us?
Right, really interesting. I couldn't believe that stat you mentioned at the beginning, 31%, but because of the manager. But yeah, really, thanks again for your input. Okay, so the next one, we've got 2 questions left, and then we're going to do some Q&A questions for the panel. So this is around diversity, and Kate and Kieran, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to ask you guys to sort of contribute again. So what role does diversity and inclusion play in talent acquisition strategies? And how can companies ensure a diverse talent pool? Kate, would you like to
I
start?
can start. Yeah, sure. I'm trying to move so the light's not blocking. I think, it really starts with inclusive practices that drive diversity rather than the other way around. And it's coming back to your culture and what you stand for as a company and how you identify. I think data is one thing, quotas are one thing, but actually actions speak louder than words. And I think, what are companies doing? What are we doing to make sure everybody can bring their whole self to work? And so, celebrating, embracing, being deliberate, being authentic are things that are really important to us. So just a few examples. We've hired a lot of people from abroad. We've actually got 27 different nationalities out of 185 people in the UK. That's really, significant in terms of cultural differences and, fantastic different perspectives that we've got in the company. So we did a diversity lunch, where people bring food from all over from their country. So we've got 27 different dishes basically in the room, which is a simple thing, but it's a celebration of who we are and how diverse we've become. So those lunches are going to continue because they were very popular.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of good food that way too.
That's good.
You get to try a lot, yeah, and have really interesting discussions as well, and share a lot of interesting recipes. Genderless toilets as well. Something, that's simple, but something that's had a huge impact. And actually, we had some feedback from an unsuccessful candidate that didn't make the final round some weeks ago to say, I just wanted to tell you that you made me feel so welcome, and the fact that you do that, it's not easy being different in engineering or even in the space industry necessarily, but you've built an environment where I could feel I could be myself, which was just super positive to hear, especially from someone that wasn't successful in the process. We've got a neurodiversity support group that actually has been instigated by the employees themselves. It's not something HR has led. It's something that again, something we're super proud of, that employees can feel that they can create these things and ask the business for support. And it's for us how we amplify that, how we can actually tap into untapped talent in the market. I think the statistic is 95% of neurodiverse people are not employed. I need to double check that figure, so don't quote me, but it's a high percentage. Yeah. And we're actually looking at how do we change the recruitment process to make sure that we are inclusive towards neurodiverse talent. Face-to-face interviews are really challenging for people that are autistic, for example. Eye contact is difficult for some people with ADHD tend to talk or elaborate more than the question was designed to. So there's lots of different challenges that people face, and it's how we can just continue our path to be more inclusive. So yeah, coming back to celebrating, being authentic, it's not about the figures. The figures show progress, but be authentic, celebrate, and know your people. I think that's really key. And like I said earlier, offer support through different stages of life. Yeah. Because we hire human beings, we don't hire robots. So we need to embrace everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kate. And then for you, Kieran?
Yeah, just to echo Kate's comments regarding culture, I oversee the early talent development at Intelsat. And one of the most common questions is about our company culture. And that's where I turn on and I just start going off about all the wonderful things that we have going on, in addition to our impactful mission, of course. We use platforms like Ripple Match and Circa to help we use those to focus on, Gen Z and underrepresented groups. Diversity is more than a metric. It's really about feeling your daily experience of coming into work and being your true self. We take pride in that diverse and inclusive culture, which is both enjoyable and meaningful. ERGs, employee resource groups, also can serve as a valuable resource for talent acquisition. I'm not just talking about it. I'm actually on the ground. I'm co-chair of communications for WIN, which is Women's Initiative Network at Intelsat. And so I love talking about it, and sometimes I can go on and on about it. But, really partnering with our ERGs, that encourages referrals. We're able to foster partnerships with diversity organizations, and that really, demonstrates our commitment to enhancing representation. For example, we have some of the events that we've had this year. We had Dr. Frankel, who's author of Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office, speak to our WIN group. We had Pride Trivia, which, echoing what Kate said regarding that candidate feeling seen, we have somebody in one of our offices who shared that having Pride Trivia really made them feel, really good. And it wasn't something that, maybe 5-10 years ago was around. We also have the Black Experience. They're hosting roundtables, and actually this month celebrating UK Black History Month. To food, right? World Cultural Diversity Day. We had that earlier this year, where we had food from all around the world, all around the globe. We had dance performances. We had all of our different offices joining in, dancing on the camera. And one more thing is I'm really lucky. I get to work with my mom, who's been at Intelsat for over 35 years. And we're currently planning our Diwali lunch celebration, which is the second one we've done. And, food brings everyone together, and we love to celebrate that. And I think, we celebrate our culture, and it's beyond just numbers. We get to talk about that. We get to share that. And I think that's important. I mean, in terms of certain strategies, of course, having a diverse hiring panel, having inclusive job descriptions, offering inclusive benefits and policies, having an internship and mentorship program, these are all very important to ensuring that we do have a diverse pool.
Fantastic. Thank you. All the questions are coming thick and fast. So we'll on to our final question, and then we'll go to the Q&A. And I know I've got a few here that I need to read out. Okay, so the last question for me, it's and you've touched on it already, but I'm going to aim this at Jon and Kate again. But it's around sort of the remote hiring, hybrid models, returning back to work. Can you sort of emphasize, or can you go into a little bit more detail around the strategies to get the right balance between remote working and on-site presence?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. For us, it's been trial and error, and we haven't got it right every time. And I think we're still in process trying to figure out what's the best thing. I think we're on the right path now.
Yeah.
So we actually started, I know this kind of been a big thing in the last probably 6 months or so, where the RTO is like, what are we going to do? We actually started after the first lockdown, at least here in Luxembourg, was March of 2020 to through May, beginning of June 2020 or something like that. And people started slowly coming back. And so we actually put out there globally, which is the wrong thing, because it was COVID was doing different things in different countries at that time. That everybody needed to start coming back into the office. Now, there wasn't a mandate. It was really like trying to get people in, but the way it was communicated, it really pissed people off. And we struggled from that point, because then there were lockdowns again and all kinds of things happened. But we went back and forth on this. But now we've really landed on you have to be in the office 3 days a week. And then the other two are really up to, we encourage people to be here every day. There is plenty of research now that shows that people are generally, I'm not going to say always, but generally more productive in person with people. And there's a strong belief from our executive leadership that that's the way it should be. So there's a push to make sure everybody's here. We've consciously said it's 3 days a week in the office versus you can take up to 2 days a week at home, and made it very clear about it's being in the office.
Yeah.
I think our challenge that we've had with this really came down to how we went about communicating to the staff why we're doing this and why we believe it's beneficial. And the hard part, of course, and probably other people have experienced this, is a lot of people we hired over the last 2 to 3 years were remote or were, able to work from home, and that's what they got used to. And so trying to change that's been tough. What we've really focused on is everybody we're hiring now, and it starts at the very beginning of the recruiting process. We're very upfront that the expectation is you're in your office 3 days a week. So that now that there's not a surprise when they show up and like, oh, I thought I could work from home, as much as I wanted to. Now, this is not to say we don't have remote workers. We do. We have some remote people. In fact, 3 of our executive team are working remote. They work out of their homes. But we're starting to see more and more people that are willing to relocate. I think 3 or 4 of the hires recently we've had in the US have been relocating to an office, where before they would have just been working from home. So we're seeing more people willing to relocate. I think things have shifted in the market as well. That kind of helps, because we're not the only company with 3 days or whatever number of days a week in the office. But we're starting to see that more. We're doing things like offering free lunch on Fridays. Some of the offices do have like free breakfast or something in the mornings. And interesting thing is, like here in Luxembourg, the most attended days are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Whereas some of the other offices, it's different. It's very random. It looks random to me, at least, that when most people are in the office, some of them are on Fridays. Other places it's on Mondays. It's kind of weird as to how many, because we are tracking that attendance, so we get an idea of what's happening.
Yeah.
But that's where it's been for us. It's been a challenge. We've had some rough goes at it. I think we're on the right track, and a place that we've landed is best for the company and best for the employees. And that was probably the hardest part, is figuring that one out.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Okay. Kate, over to you.
Yeah, I agree with Jon in terms of, it's been an evolution, and the same for us, Gal. I think we've not also mandated as such. I mean, we have a hybrid policy, so we do state, 2 days, we would like to see 2 people at least 2 days a week in the office. And we've been really explicit about why, why should you come in? Why is it important to be in the office, and what do we want to create as a company? And I think that understanding why is really important. But it has evolved naturally. It's actually really quite busy, and because we're hiring so many people, we're running out of space a little bit in terms of desks, and we've only been in this building for 18 months, but it's phenomenal, the rate of growth. And I think there's a few key things from our side. It's creating the environment where people want to come in. Coming back to teamwork, good utilization of space. Do people feel they can nest? We have a open desk policy where you book your desk, so it is a kind of a free space. But now, we're having areas of the office where people work in their project teams, or they can, choose to join this. There's some creative spaces that we're going to have, that we've communicated in the last days. So I think it's creating the environment people want to come in. It's great having free cereal and free coffee and fruit and lots of things that we offer. But beyond that, it's also having an environment and opportunities for people to connect. And that's something really important with the research that's done by Gallup. Having a best friend at work, whilst might seem a little bit, a nice thing to say, is so valuable. It's so important, actually. It makes such a difference to people's engagement. So having deliberate kind of social interactions is really key. And we've got a social group in the company that works on those kind of social events, and that's another reason, to connect and to be together. I also think trust in managers and trust in employees plays a key role in this, and people can be more productive in either environment. So it's just understanding our people having those conversations, and supporting, different teams with different requirements. So yeah, it has been a journey as well, same as
Yeah.
Young, but I don't think there's any right or wrong. I think you need to find the balance that works for your company and your teams. But maintaining that flexibility is so key to attract people.
Yeah, totally agree. Excellent. Well, that's my last question for me. So thank you everybody for your contribution. So I've got three
one
questions.
other,
Sorry,
hey,
go on.
Lauren, one other thing I just wanted to add to that, and this was when I had the recruiting team before I started running L&D, is I would get a lot of complaints about, we're not doing it like everybody else. But what I had to keep telling people, and there's even now, I think it's important to, like, none of us have gone through this before. This is a learning experience. We're all trying something different.
Yeah.
And we're all experimenting. And the good news is it's an experiment. You can do something else and try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we try something different. I think there was our experience a little bit was around people like, well, that's not how I would do it, so I don't like it. Versus like, you know what, we haven't been here before. We're all trying this out. And so I think now that over the 2-3 years we've gone through this, it's this evolution, as Kate called it, that has been super important. And I think we're all landing in kind of the same place, but we've got there in a different path.
Right.
I think just to add to that as well, the final point from my side is about balancing experience in teams. And we've just hired 13 graduates. Those younger or more junior people need support, and there need to be an environment where they're learning. And I think it's that sense of accountability of those that are more senior as well, that can share and impart their experience and that want to. And we've actually seen real uptake in our attendance as well, with people wanting to be here to support each other. And that's coming back to the culture and what we're trying to create as a company. So I think if you can also marry experience with those kind of face-to-face interactions, giving people learning experiences, having buddies, having mentors, then that can really help as well the topic of in office or on site.
Best way to learn.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. I know we've got a hard stop in about 15 minutes, so I've got I've basically picked 3 questions from the audience, and for those that I don't read out today, we'll get the panel to respond to them around the relevant topics. So if we can start, and again, this is open to the whole panel, so feel free, one of you jump in if you're happy to ask these questions. So first one's from Greg. We spoke about different industries and bringing their talent into the satellite and space industry. So Greg's asking, how do companies teach the space industry to people hired outside of the industry?
I guess I'm thinking teaching the industry means understanding what the industry looks like. It's not so much the specific things. And honestly, I wouldn't say we do anything specific. Again, we've got some of this content that's been generated by the businesses to talk about what the space industry looks like for us and how we operate in there. So that stuff's available for them, but there's an expectation that we're going to have, people will go out, if they want to be in it, they're going to want to go out and learn. It's one of the values that we have as a company, is that people that are passionate and excited about things will go out and learn about that if they don't know about it. So, but they can ask, they can sit with people that have been here for a while and talk to them, absolutely. And people will do that. There is no problem with that. But it is incumbent upon the new person coming in to say, what is it that I want to know about the industry? Where should I go? What should I look at? What things can I take a look at?
Brilliant. And I mentioned, Greg, at the beginning about Space Business Qualified. So we'll reach out and send you some links to that, because that's courses that are allowed on for people to learn about the space industry. Okay, 2 more questions. So I'm going to go.
Do you mind if I add on to that?
Oh, please, Sarah. Yeah, please.
Thank you so much. So I think SBQ is a wonderful resource. We actually use it at SES. And I also think that it's very important to, in part of the onboarding, is to provide this training or this fundamental understanding of what the industry is. And that's your foundation to supporting that individual in their role and their growth within their role. I think it's very important to provide that in the beginning and support that and enable that growth throughout their time at the organization. So I just wanted to add that little bit.
No, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I add one point?
Please go ahead.
So we have a couple of things. We have a Learn the Business, So for example, in the past year and a half, we've launched 8 satellites. We had our SVP of Space Systems basically explain how to launch a satellite. And for me, this eureka moment came up of just, wow, we're all working together to make this happen. And it just kind of was really exciting. And then we also have GPS. So this is for new employees, where we have every month we have leaders or business people from different business units that talk about what they do. And so you get a kind of a more holistic view of the company, from our commercial side to sales to HR. So really it gives you that whole you get a more sense of what we're about.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I hope I didn't come across as like it's all on the candidate or the employee side to figure it out. We do have a lot of content that they can view, because I was thinking just the space industry in general, but I think about how we fit into it.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of contents available. It's now, as we're redoing our whole onboarding process, and part of it is making sure that new employees can get up to speed quickly on the business. So there is the trainings that we're putting into place for them, but it's very specific to us versus the whole space industry.
Sure. Brilliant. Okay, so this is from Kola, who's based in Lagos. So she's asking the panel. She works for a UK-based satellite company, and would love to know how specific ways talent is recruited for the African market, because she said that they're not seeing any adverts. Is it through headhunting or for recruitment agencies?
The only thing I can say, at least for us, is I wouldn't say we specifically out and target the African market, because we don't have any, while we might have customers down there, we don't have any offices or anything. But we are, it's probably some of the other companies represented here, we are limited also by some of the regulations and some of the export control things that we have to deal with. And so that's there whether we like it or not. And some countries are easier than others to hire from. But we don't have like a particular, we're going to go after the African market. So,
yeah, I mean, I can speak from experience. We do a lot of recruitment for some of you companies, actually for Africa. And for us, it's going in, speaking to the right talent, going into different industries that maybe if they don't have the sort of the satellite hubs there, that's how we have been hiring for companies. Okay, that's good. One final question, because I know we've got a hard stop. This is somebody's put it in, but unfortunately it's anonymous. But it's how can the new space compete with old space in the quest for talent, and vice versa?
Go ahead, Sarah. Look, you took your microphone off.
Well, I was just going to say, this is such an interesting question. And I think also a complicated question to answer. I think in terms of the constant quest for talent, I think it's understanding the roles and what the transferable skills are, being very transparent with what those skills are and how they transfer. And I honestly, I think it's continuing to push the boundaries in terms of what we do today. For learning, for example, it's moving from this traditionalist approach to a more modern workplace learning. It's and again, it's being innovative in everything that we do. So again, this is a complicated question.
Yeah,
I think I just barely touched on it, but I'll leave it to somebody.
well, I'll help you because I know we've got some time to go, but I mean, we're seeing it as well. There's a massive crossover. So everybody wants to maybe move into the new space. There's a lot of innovation, a lot of new technologies, and vice versa. Coming into the established players, there's still a lot of interest, but I think it's exciting for everybody. So, okay, well, I think we're pretty much nearly run out of time. So that sort of brings us to the end of our discussion. So, like I said, the questions that I didn't get to answer today that you've sent through, we'll respond in writing, and we'll post them next to the video and then on the particular website that's relevant to the topics today. You can watch the recordings of previous webinars at YouTube and at Jasora's website. For the panelists, I just want to thank you today for sharing your interesting views. Thanks to the audience. It's been very enjoyable, and really appreciate all your time.